Almighty and loving Father, creator of heaven and earth, we praise you and adore you. You are King of kings. We humbly ask for forgiveness of our sins. Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. Send us your Holy Spirit to be our guide and give us the wisdom to understand every topic that we are going to discuss. Enlighten our minds and let your love be upon us. May this webinar bring success and growth to our team. We ask for wisdom and grace to use our talents for the betterment of others. With gratitude, we offer this prayer. In Jesus' name we pray. All together, amen.
Good afternoon and welcome to the fifth series of Dr. Mariano Lau webinar series on online distance learning. I am Fredly Bukog, your moderator for this afternoon. So we have a pre-recorded welcome message from Dr. Dave Marshall, the project leader for Dr. Mariano Lau ICI Laboratory and director for Silliman Online University Learning, and another welcome message by Dr. Mariano Lau.
Hello world! Greetings from Silliman University, the campus by the sea. Mabuhay from the Dr. Mariano and Lina Lau Activity Center. The Silliman University and Dr. Lau Free Computer Education was established to provide free computer education to Silliman and the community. Specifically, this program aims to offer need-based computer skills training to Silliman employees, Silliman students, and retirees from the community. The first batch was launched in January 2019. It was conducted every weekend with 25 participants per category. The training is conducted every Saturday for 3 months. Due to COVID-19, the face-to-face training is temporarily discontinued, but COVID-19 did not stop us to continue our advocacy of providing free knowledge transfer in relation to computer. Last July to September, we organized free webinars on online distance teaching. The webinar provided skills training among teachers that is relevant in this time of pandemic. Dr. Mariano Lau Innovation, Creation, and Invention Laboratory are excited to learn with you, dear students. We are with you in prayer that this global crisis will end the soonest. Thank you for joining us. God bless everyone.
Good morning. Dr. Dave Marshall, the staff, and everybody, welcome. I'm always happy to meet with all of you. Hopefully, we will meet each other again face to face next year. The online distance learning will be a great adventure for all of us through technology. I wish all of you will take advantage of this opportunity with our great teachers and be successful. Thank you and have a nice day. Enjoy.
So thank you, Dr. Marshall and Dr. Lau. So before we begin, let me remind you with our webinar rules. So please mute your microphone, put your complete name on your profile so we can identify you, turn off your video camera, And later, there will be an open forum. If you have any questions with regards to the webinar, please type in the chat box for Zoom attendees. And for our Facebook attendees, please type in the comment box. So this webinar is a video recorded, and recordings will be made available at the Dr. Mariano Lau Innovation, Creation, and Invention Laboratory website. So, and just to remind you, we are live on Facebook. So, our webinar's topic for this afternoon focuses on lessons learned from online and distance education. So, let me introduce to you our guest speaker for this webinar. She is a faculty member of the College of Computer Studies at Silliman University. She has been with Silliman University since 1993. She is a former chairperson of the Information Systems Department of the College of Computer Studies. She holds the following degrees: Bachelor of Science in Medical Technology from Trinity University of Asia, formerly called Trinity College of Quezon City. Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from AUMA University, and Diploma in Computer Science and Master in Information Systems from the University of the Philippines Open University, or UPOU. She is currently on study leave to finish her Doctor in Information Technology degree in AMA University Online Education, or AMA-U OED. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Assistant Professor Melody Angelique Rivera. Let's give her our virtual applause. Mom, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
joining us.
you. Thank you, Fredly, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, I will be talking about my experience with online and distance learning. Okay, let me start. So, I hope you can see this. Is this okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sige. So, this is my lessons learned, no? But before anything else, I'd like to take you on what we will be talking about this afternoon. So these are our topics. And then after that, at the end of the explanation, I will be talking about the lessons that I've learned based on my experience. Let's start off with differentiating between online learning and distance learning. Okay, what you think you already know. I know most of you have already gone through this. So online learning, it's sometimes called e-learning, but to differentiate it from distance learning, the online learning actually has a face-to-face, and you have a contact with your teacher. So your students, being a teacher, your students can actually work on their activities using application software in the classroom. So it is assumed that you have computers in the classroom. And the activities of the students can be submitted to a learning or content management system, or preferably if the students have emails, then they can also email that, just in case the LMS or CMS bugs down. Okay, so the online learning actually uses blended learning technique. So aside from using gadgets in the classroom, there are also other types that you can use. So you can use modules, You can use the TV, you can use the radio, and you can use all of this actually at the same time. So online learning was actually designed so your teachers can have different teaching styles. And this means that your students will not get bored. Okay, now let's go to distance learning. So distance learning is called remote learning. The assumption is there is no face-to-face or physical contact with the teacher. The teacher only communicates with the students through email, instant messaging apps, video conferencing software like Zoom and Google Meet, and of course the LMS like Soul and a CMS. So in distance learning, the students work on their activities online, usually from home, okay, and at their own pace. Please take note of that. And delivery of instruction is solely online. So all resources should be available in the LMS or CMS, or they could be sent via email or instant messaging apps like Messenger. Okay, now let's go to some advantages and disadvantages of online and distance learning. Have you experienced this? Let's see. Okay, so advantages are this one can increase the interest as subject delivery will be varied. And this one is usually done in online learning. Okay. And teachers must be available to cater to questions. And this one is for online learning. Resources for online learning and distance learning are available anytime and anywhere. So 24 by 7 by 365. Okay, and the use of application software can actually speed up the completion of the students' assignments. And for the teachers, maybe the calculation of grades can be sped up also. Now, the classes can continue without disruption, and this is true, especially in distance learning. But if you have power interruption, then that comes with a falseness. Okay, and students can work at their own pace, especially for those who are working, and this is true for distance learning. Now, for the disadvantages, it is assumed that computers are available in the classroom, and this is true for online learning. And it also assumes that students are connected to internet connection. And it also assumes that students and teachers are all computer literate. So this is for online learning and distance learning. It also assumes that students and teachers have access to computers and they have access to and know how to use the required software. And for distance learning, this assumes that your students are self-disciplined and mature, and they have time management to keep up with the course. And of course, students have to be self-motivated and organized. It also assumes that students can work independently on assigned activities or what we call in distance learning assessments. Okay, so please take note that all these three are on distance learning. Okay, and for both online and distance learning, this assumes that teachers have been trained to deliver lessons online. So training of teachers are actually a must. Okay, and teachers should know how to communicate with students in the virtual classroom. Okay, so in the case of Silliman, we started off with Google Classroom, so that is considered a virtual classroom. Okay, and it also assumes, and please take note of this, that the class size must not be more than 20 for the students and teachers to interact properly. So this is true for online learning and also distance learning. And the problem is for distance learning, it's difficult to monitor whether your students are working or not. Okay. And for the teachers, well, cheating is inevitable. Okay. And it is more problematic actually in distance learning. Okay. So another thing is the screen time you have for the students. This is one problem at the moment, no? Especially with the pandemic. Now, let's go to my experience. I actually started distance learning in 1993. Okay. So I had an experience with national correspondence schools. And this one is a picture of the modules, no? Two modules actually that I have. I have actually 7 of them. Okay, so what I took up in ICS was accounting. So basically, it's distance learning, and I have to learn at my own pace. The physical na course materials were provided. They were sent through courier. And this course material contained all the notes, lecture notes, self-assessment questions in between the chapters. And at the end of the module is an examination that you can pass or send through an email or courier service to Pasig, because ICS, the office of ICS was located in Pasig. Okay, so I did not have any teacher or mentor. So it was really self-study. And the course material was assumed to be enough to have the explanation and the self-assessment questions to understand the topics. So the examination, as I said a while ago, is provided at the end of each course material. And you can send the test through mail or you can send it through fax. The first module actually that I uh, had to be sent through fax because it was only 1 page. And the rest of the exams for the other modules were sent through mail because they were about several pages long. Unfortunately, I was not able to finish this degree because of the following. I had no motivation. I had nobody to ask for clarification of topics. There were no guides to drive you to finish the course material. And I was really not interested in accounting topics. Okay. So in 1997, I had to study further than my Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. So our dean during that time encouraged us to do a diploma in computer science. And this was offered in UP Online University. So what we had during the DCS was both online learning and distance learning. Okay, so in what way? The physical course material was provided. So we had to go to the learning center. In our case, it was in Cebu, and uh, these were distributed during orientation. Okay, so if the physical course material was not complete, then the rest were sent through LBC. And they contained all the lecture notes, all the self-assessments, all the assignments that needed to be passed on specified deadlines. We had actually a schedule of activities for the whole semester for this. And other graded activities were done through the UPOU LMS. An example of that was in one of my courses, which covered ethics. We had to do an activity to react on a question given by our mentor. Okay, so there were two mentors actually in my DCS. So we had tutors and we had professors. So the tutors gave lectures almost every week at the nearest UP Learning Center. So as I said a while ago, my learning center was UP College in Cebu. So uh, before going to the lectures, it is assumed that you have read the chapters or the topics in the course material prior to the lecture. Okay, and the professors who were actually located in Manila handled the course, checked and graded our assignments, and these professors usually were the ones who created the course material. The course material is more than 100 pages actually, each one. Okay, so we have not met them, but only communicated through LMS or through email. But we actually met um, Ma'am Rojas during the first orientation in DCS. And for the examinations, we only had two, midterm and final. And this must be taken on schedule. So we had a schedule for these examinations, and the exams actually were either half day or whole day. And the exams had to be taken in the learning centers. The exams were given to us sealed, and they were only opened during examination time. So UPOU main office sent these to the learning center. Now for my MIS, Master in Information Systems, this one is a non-thesis degree. Okay, and we also had online and distance learning, but this was mostly distance learning than online learning because we did not have tutors. Okay, so the physical course material, just like in DCS, was provided. So lecture notes, assessments, and all these things were inside the course material. And the learning is self-paced. So they assumed that we were working and studying at the same time, and other graded activities were provided or done through the LMS. Our professors, just like in our DCS, were the ones who created the course material, and they were the ones who handled the course, checked our papers, checked our assignments, and we only communicated through email. Okay, for the examinations, we only had one actually, and the final exams were only for our first year MIS courses. Okay, so courses meaning our subjects. Uh, UPOU had 2 semesters in 1 year, just like in Silliman. Okay, and our comprehensive exam for MIS was taken after the first semester of our second year. So just like in our DCS, it had to be taken on schedule. It was a whole day exam. We only had a lunch break, and we could only take them in the learning centers. As usual, exams were sealed and were sent from the UP main office. And since the MIS was non-thesis, what we had to do is to create a software for our final project. And we also had to create a technical documentation for together with the software. Okay, and it had to be hardbound. And the final defense had to be done in UP Los Baños, so we had to travel. And this was scheduled based on the availability of the professor in charge. And when we went to Los Baños, the professor in charge already invited some panel members who were tasked to look at our project during that time. Okay. So that was my experience in UPOU. Now, recently, I had an experience with AMA-U online education or AMA-U OED. So I started the registration for the online education in AMA in 2017, but I was only able to enroll in early 2018. And since this one is basically distance learning, we we can actually pick a particular um, month, no, for our beginning of trimester. So what I'm taking currently is Doctor in Information Technology. This is distance learning. Everything actually is available online. So the handbook is provided in our LMS, and student support can receive inquiries anytime. So I can actually email them anytime of the day, midnight, etc. But they will be able to answer within 48 hours. In my experience, actually, they usually answer my inquiries within 24 hours. So we were assigned a buddy. Each of us had a buddy who sends us reminders and announcements from AMA OED. The buddy can also help us, especially if our inquiries were not answered, they can help us with inquiring also to the student support. Okay, so and they will be our leeway on having responses from the help desk. So each trimester is divided into 14 weeks, and each week contains a series of a set no, of lecture notes, reading assignments, and assessment activities. So orientation is per course. First week of uh, a particular course is actually orientation. And then the second week will follow assignments, and then we also had lecture notes. And then the classroom rules and the grading system no must be read prior to the activation of the first set of lecture notes, which meant that once we have read the PowerPoint presentation for the classroom rules and the grading system, once we get into our LMS, automatically the system will check that we have finished reading the orientation notes. And once that one is checked, then the next week will be activated. And the week will contain lecture notes, which can be accessed in the LMS, but we cannot download the notes, so we had to read them online. And the reading assignments and assessments can be downloaded. They were usually journals or journals that we can download from a particular website that they provide. And there are questions following that particular reading assignment that must be submitted. Answers to this must be submitted before the week containing the next set of lectures can be activated. So you cannot jump from week to week. You have to finish a particular week first before the next week will be activated. Now, for the access to technology, each student is expected to have their own PC or laptop, and each student must have a stable internet connection, and each student must be able to download required software for some assessment activities. Now, the thing is, we had to have a stable internet connection. The reason for this is because we had examinations that were online, and they were time constrained. So we only had actually 1 or 1.5 hours to finish, and there were maybe 20 to 25 questions. So we had to make sure that our internet connection was stable. Okay, so learning is self-paced, although we really had to finish within 14 weeks. But if you are fast enough, then you can finish 2 weeks worth of lecture notes and assessment in a week. Okay, so the students are assumed to have regular jobs or working, and we can only work on reading assignments and assessments at night or on weekends. Now, for our mentors or professors, all of them are actually part-time, working with other universities, and we meet only an hour a week. The meeting can be lecture time or consultation time, and it usually is done at night. And this would depend on the availability of the mentor. I had an experience with this Now, our mentor actually scheduled at 9 in the evening, but she had to travel. So we ended having our consultation at 11 in the evening, and we finished at about 1 a.m. just to finish our assessments. Okay, so based on that, let me run through the lessons that I learned based on my experience with online and distance learning. So basically, online learning and distance learning is difficult to implement. Okay, so if you are on the administration side, the digital curriculum must be properly planned. Okay, and you have to think that the online and distance learning programs must be a way to provide quality education to those who are far from the school or university. So with this, faculty who have no experience with software or hardware must be trained on how to deliver the course or the subject online. Course materials have to be prepared beforehand, and they have to be ready to distribute before the class starts. And of course, the infrastructure for delivering the programs must be in place and have been tested. Okay, just like what we have in our Soul LMS. And in my experience, this is not for all courses or subjects. So online and distance learning cannot satisfy the educational need for all courses. I'm not sure if some of you have experienced this, because those courses or subjects with hands-on really need to have hands-on. Okay, so for example, chemistry or physics or any other course that has a hands-on. Okay, so another course that have to be taught face to face is physical education, like swimming or any other sports. Okay, and this is not for all types of learners. So online or distance learning is not appropriate for younger or dependent learners. So younger learners, like elementary level learners or students, and dependent learners, those children who have special needs, okay, and those who are in the early childhood. So distance learning is really not appropriate for them. The problem is, with this pandemic, we cannot do anything. Okay, so you must have the mindset to learn independently and be able to properly manage family, work, and studies simultaneously. Okay, now distance and online learning needs teachers or mentors. Their presence are actually important, virtual or not. Okay, the reason for this is they have to be available to explain the topics and answer questions from the students during classes. Okay. Now, if you are in a class after the lecture, being a student, you always have to ask for clarification on the topics that you do not understand. Just don't be silent and then all of a sudden you just say that you cannot understand anything. Okay, so you have to actually read the lessons in advance or review the lessons that were taken up. Okay, so this is your responsibility. Now, on the response of your mentors or your teachers, usually in distance learning, it will be delayed. This is to be expected. Okay, so the reason for this is some professors have a regular job and only work part-time in a DL class or distance learning class. So some even serve more than 3 schools, colleges, or universities at the same time. And attendance in the class is a must. You have to always attend scheduled lectures. So the reason for this is during the lecture, the teachers are explaining the topics on schedule. Okay. And aside from that, there will be important announcements that will be made before the start of the class or during the class and even after the class. So if you are sleeping during this time, then you might not be able to catch up. Okay. And it's possible that your lecture or your class has not been recorded, so you can't do anything about the announcements. Okay. And you have to choose your resources or reference wisely. I know many of you look at YouTube videos or blogs, but please do not depend on them unless these come from reputable schools. Okay. And per experience, I usually go to YouTube videos once I have an idea on what a certain topic is all about. Okay, so it will be more or less my review, not the beginning of a lecture. So it's better to read your books and journals on a certain topic. It could be physical or it could be electronic. What I do with my electronic um, books is to print them out because I don't usually like to read on screen. And always check for updates. This is a must because we are all online and you are far from your teacher. So you have to check the LMS or the CMS, your email, your instant messaging apps for any class updates. So the reason for this is deadlines might be changed. There might be additional graded interaction activities and additional instructions from your mentor. Now, you have to be conscious of deadlines. You have to make sure that your assignments and assessments are submitted on time because some teachers will deduct points for late submissions and some teachers really do not accept late submissions at all. So you have to be careful with this. So be conscious of deadlines. And you have to be consistent with your studies. I know that this is hard, especially in the pandemic, but you have to make sure that you allocate 1 or 2 hours every day for reading about assigned topics or lessons. You have to be disciplined enough for this. So it's much better to read printed materials rather than read them on screen. Okay, just like what I said a while ago, even though I have an electronic version, I usually print them out so I can have off screen time. And please remember that a healthy mind needs a healthy body. So you have to manage your screen time. Take time off the screen and take care of your body. So this is usually what I do. I let my body circulate. I really have to walk around. I rotate my feet, elevate my legs, and other things that makes sure that blood in my legs circulate. I let my eyes rest. So I could either close my eyes for a few minutes, power nap, okay? Or go outside and look at something green. If you have a plant in the room, then look at that, not on your screen. And the thing is, you really have to let your back rest because I know some of you have classes that are 3 hours long, 4 hours long. But after that, you really need to lie down, or you can stand up and stretch your back, or lie down and stretch your back on the bed. Okay. So this is very important. And lastly, always practice netiquette. Because you are in a virtual environment, you have to be conscious on how you behave. Okay. Part of this maybe will be how you dress up in front of your class. Please make sure that you are not in pajamas. Okay. Because to think about it, you will be attending class, a formal class. Okay. And please take note, I forgot to mention that you really have to eat before starting a class. Okay, because your class may be from 2 hours to 3 hours or 4 hours, and the teacher might not be able to give you any break in between. So you really have to eat. Or maybe you can have a bit of snack in your on your table together with water, but you really have to eat. Okay? And as a recap, please take note that these are the things that we have discussed. Difference between online learning and distance learning, some advantages and disadvantages, my experiences, and the lessons that I have learned. I hope you have also learned something with what I have discussed. Thank you. That's the end of our presentation, and thank you for listening. It's now time for questions. If anybody would want to ask.
So thank you so much, Mom Rivera, for that informative and reflective ideas in the lessons learned from online and education. So in this case, let's give her a virtual applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in addition to what Mom Rivera said about online and distance education, in my perspective as an educator, so you need to be more creative, explore and apply different edtech tools and external resources like YouTube and other cloud-based storage, just like Google Drive and other stuff to present your teaching and learning materials effectively. So you must choose wisely. Okay.
Yeah.
And in this case, we are in the new normal mode of teaching and learning.
Yeah,
As an
unfortunately.
yes, as an educator, you should treat your student well. As we all know, successful students will be the primary promoters of the program. It could be online and distance education. So remember that bad news is always faster than good news. So therefore, we should provide detailed orientation to our learners and give learners continuous positive support as well as long patience.
Yes, you really
Yeah.
need to have patience with your students.
And of course, we should respond to students' concern in a timely and effective manner. So in this case, we are now in an open forum part. So you may type in your questions in the chat box here in Zoom for our Zoom attendees. And for those who are watching online via Facebook, you can also type your question in the comment box. So to start the question, I have prepared two questions for you, Rivera.
Okay.
Okay. So here is my first question. So,
Well,
in your opinion, ma'am, how helpful have parents been while supporting their children's online or remote learning?
okay. Well, for elementary school, okay. This I don't have an elementary school student. I have one in Southdale. Um, they also have online learning and distance learning actually. Um, they have modules, and usually what I do is to monitor if my son has finished assignments. Okay, because what Southdale does is to let them attend a Zoom class. It is a must. Okay, and they usually have the activity during classes, and what they do is to picture what they have done uh, on their activity and send them to the messenger. No, what happened with the well, my nephew was reacting to how the module was done in the elementary school, no, in public school, because they had a problem because some of the what is this modules cannot be finished by the student. So what happened was the parents had to intervene, and what happened was, well, the most of it was done by the parents for the student to be able to pass the assignments on time. Okay. So unfortunately, this really happens. And I hope that it will be better next year, because I know the pandemic will still continue for the next year. So I really hope DepEd can find a way to circumvent this particular situation on how to deal with that particular act, on how the parents will be helping. No, and another thing is there will be a problem if, for example, the parents do not know anything about the lesson. Okay, so that is a very big problem actually, especially in the public school, because we know that the parents send their children to school because they themselves maybe have not finished the school. So the problem is, for example, if the student is already in grade 6 and they're having a math problem, how could the parents help? Okay, so that's a really big problem. Okay, so it's okay for us, for those who have finished college, to help our children, but we know most of the parents now who have not finished will really have this kind of problem.
Okay, thank you, Mom Rivera. So I have a follow-up question, Mom.
Sige,
Okay.
go.
So, what are the key factors of making an online or distance education course effectively or more effective?
uh, Distance education course. Okay. Actually, you have to make sure that your um, course material is already prepared. Okay. And that means to say that you really make sure that you have all the lessons prepared from the beginning of the semester up to the end of the semester. All the assessment activities have to be prepared. Um, and since we are in distance learning, there is a possibility now that um, the course, the student, I mean, will be able to read ahead. Okay, so that's why I said that you really have to have all the things prepared. No, but there are also times so your student will not be overwhelmed. No, you have to make sure that you give them one or two maybe topics ahead so they can read ahead, but they really need to focus on the topic at hand. Okay, so for delivery of the course, um well, it would depend on the teacher on how to do it. We have all these things, like we have Messenger to communicate. We have Google Suite, the classroom, the drive. We have Microsoft. I use Microsoft, by the way, in my collaboration for my documents, because it's easy to collaborate with some of my teachers and correct them online. Okay. And especially I'm using a Word file. So I use OneDrive for this. We have all these, no? but you have to make sure that your student understands that these are just tools, and it is their responsibility to really read on the topic ahead. Okay, because this is distance learning. That's why I said a while ago that we have to assume that our students are mature enough for learning independently. Okay, that's why that is what the distance learning is actually all about. Now, if, for example, in the pandemic, we do not have this kind of system that the student cannot learn independently, then we'll be having a problem. Okay. So we can actually deliver the course through PowerPoint presentations. There are several ways on how to make sure that your PowerPoint presentations are lively. Okay. So the thing is, for PowerPoint presentations, no, just make sure that you do not place paragraphs on the PowerPoint presentations because your student will really fall asleep. Okay. Now, for those classes that have, what is this? Like calculations, mathematical calculations, etc. Okay. A very good thing to do is you have a PowerPoint presentation, but you also have a graphics tablet. So you have a question there or maybe a problem on your PowerPoint presentation, but the rest is blank. And then you use your graphics tab to explain to the students on how to solve the problem. Do not place the solution on screen immediately. They have to see that you are solving the problem step by step. That's the way on how they will be able to understand. Okay. So the thing is, in my case, if I see the solution there, I'll just read through the solution and I do not understand anything. But if the professor will be writing down step by step how how the problem will be solved, then well and good. I will be able to duplicate that in my later review. Okay. So another thing is you have to give your students another way of learning. That means that you can either um, redirect them to links to ebooks or journals, or you can redirect them to um, YouTube videos. But you have to make sure that these videos are reputable, no, from reputable schools, because they might not be able to understand. For example, MIT has a very good courseware set, no, especially for us, no, in the computer science na part. The problem is it might be very high learning because they are assuming that you already have a background on the topic. So they just lecture ahead, blah, 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 blah. But the good thing about that is it's recorded. So if you have a particular topic that you do not understand, you can review that. But you have to have notes on your side to compensate to things that you do not understand. Okay. So those are things that, well, can help in the delivery, no? And you have to make sure, by the way, that you really communicate with your student, especially in the elementary school, basic education, elementary school, junior high. You really have to make sure that you see them on screen doing something. Okay. And you have to make sure to tell them to dress properly and do not lie down while in class. Okay, they really have to be seated. Okay, because they had a in Southdale they had an experience that the student was lying down during during the orientation. The student was lying down on bed. Okay, so just make sure that they are disciplined, because this particular discipline, no, will be needed, especially once the pandemic will stop. and we have to go to class. And if this 1 or 2 years they always do that, like lying down on bed or doing something else during class, then they will not be disciplined enough when they go back to school. Okay, so you have to make sure that they do that.
Okay, thank you, Mom Rivera. So I think there are no questions. So thank you, Mom Rivera, for answering the
Okay.
questions. So for now, let's do the breakout session. So we have a short breakout session for 10 minutes about the webinar on lessons learned online and distance education. And after 10 minutes, you will be redirected to the main window. Here are your moderators. So yours truly and Sir John Saint Palama, kindly turn on your camera. And then in this case, if you see a breakout pop-up window, kindly click the join button. Okay, for this part, we have the sharing part to summarize the breakout session earlier. So I have here, we have Jan sent, Sir Jan, can you share us your thoughts on lessons learned during online and distance education?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sir Fred. Online learning is definitely an educational process which takes place over the internet as a form of distance education. In Silliman, we have two ways on delivering our distance education. We have the synchronous and at the same time asynchronous. So the experiences shared by our participants help our learners, so as our students, to communicate and complete their activities at times of their own choosing and learn at their own pace. So indeed, online and distance education gave students and teachers opportunities to learn not only through direct experience but also by observing others' um, way of teaching. That's their sharing all about, Sir Fred.
Okay, thank you, Sir Jan. So for this part, we have now the closing remarks. So on behalf of Dr. Mariano Lau and Dr. Dave Marshall and our guest speaker, thank you for joining us today. And we will give Mom Rivera a certificate of recognition. So kindly show the slide. Okay, here is the certificate of recognition. I will read the details. So, Silliman University and Dr. Mariano Lau Free Computer Education Program presents this certificate of recognition to Assistant Professor Melody Angelique Rivera for sharing her valuable knowledge as a guest speaker during the fifth series of Dr. Mariano Lau webinar series with the topic Lessons Learned, Online and Distance Learning or Education, which was held on 12th of December via Zoom online. Signed, Dr. Dave Marshall, the project leader for Dr. Mariano Lau ICI Laboratory and director for Silliman Online University Learning. Let's give her a virtual applause. And here are some announcements. So we have Dr. Mariano Lau Educational and Emergency Support Fund. And then, and also we have another call for submission as Silliman University, Dr. Mariano S.C. Lau Research and Capstone Development Grant. So here, you can, for more information, you just search that one to any browser, the www.allowici.weebly.com for those details. And then here, kindly fill up the post-webinar survey. We placed there in the chat box in Zoom in order to get your certificate of participation. And then in this case, so advance Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So this will be our last webinar for this year. Okay, so so let's see each other next year. So thank you very much to our guest speaker, Mom Melody Rivera. Thank you,
Thank
Mom,
you
for
also.
Thank you,
Thank you for the
everyone.
invitation.
Thank you, everyone. And please don't forget your post webinar. Thank you and have a great day.